Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Oliver Jan. I love talking about personal finance, entrepreneurship, and financial independence. In today's video, I want to talk about the concept of personal finance and why it should be taught over a lot of other subjects that we learn in high school. So personal finance, I know, is a bit of a dry topic, and based on the financial literacy of the average American person, it is not something that's very emphasized very well when we're in high school, especially when we're in college. So one of the things that I want to go over now in today's video is how to make it a little bit more exciting and how to present it in a way where it can be thought of as like just a normal everyday thing instead of just being like, oh, I gotta focus on personal finance or I gotta do this. It should be more of a habit at that point, I would hope. And I think what I want to present is how to kind of frame everything together so that personal finance is just a little bit more amenable to your needs and your personal financial habits. So let's get started. So the first step to getting started with personal finance is actually you got to understand your goals. What are your personal goals and what are your financial goals? If your personal goal is to, for instance, let's say get a college degree, well, that's also financially related too. You got to be able to, number one, make sure you get some loans. Or if you have the ability to pay off your college tuition immediately, well, you got to save up money for that too. And that kind of ties into the fact that our personal goals and our financial goals are not actually so disparate. They actually do have some hand-in-hand relationship with each other. You just have to determine what that might be. Because of that, there's a personal incentive to understand your finances so that you can reach both your personal and your financial goals. All right, number two, the next step after that is you want to figure out what are your incomes and what are your expenses. So for instance, let's say you're working a regular job and you have a standard paycheck coming in every 2 weeks. Then you want to know how much money am I getting on a bi-weekly or even a monthly basis. That's just one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is you also have to understand, where is that money going towards? Is it going towards your rent? Is it going towards food? Is it going towards gas and utilities and bills and student loans and all these other plethora of other things that money can go towards? And by funneling down all these different categories which your money is going towards, now you can have a better and clearer grasp as to what you're doing with your money. So let me give a funny anecdote. When I was a first year graduate student, that was like my first time making any kind of income. Despite how small it was, I was really excited. So I loved pizza. I loved eating all kinds of stuff during all kinds of junk food. So a lot of my money actually went towards like Pizza Hut and Jimmy John's. So that was pretty embarrassing because once I realized that a lot of my money was going towards that, I actually had to cut that out pretty quick, and I could save a lot of money after doing that. You'd be surprised, if you haven't thought about this before, you take a look at your expenses on a monthly basis, you might see some things that you can cut out immediately. Okay, so once you have your goals written down, you know what your inflows are and your expenses, now it's time to tackle what your high interest credit card debt may be. So if you do have credit card debt, it would be wise to kind of sit down and realize, okay, what are your credit cards that you're using? What is the credit card interest rate that you have been accruing on your debt? And also just to figure out how much money do you technically owe as well, right? Because once you have all this stuff figured out and you have it down, you have a target and you can actually add this to another goal in step one, which is to pay off your credit card. Now, I want to kind of explain why credit cards are so important and why tackling credit card debt will actually behoove you in the long run. So there's two factors here. Number one, credit cards usually carry a very, very high interest rate. They usually range from 8 to 35. I've seen as high as 35%, which is insane. And that's just money that you are actually kind of tacking on to whatever payment you made with the card. So let's say, for instance, you had to charge $1,000 onto your credit card, and your credit card has a 35% APR. That's a ton of money. So that means every single year you're going to be paying an additional $350 plus on top of the $1,000 that you owed. So the first year goes by, it's going to be $1,350. That's going to be your new amount that you have to pay. The next year is going to be 35% of that number. So you see it compounds every single year. So there's a reason why compound interest works in our favor and also can work out of our favor too. So I'll talk more about compound interest in a separate video. The second concept now is it also will ding your credit score. And if you ever want to have a house one day, if you ever want to buy like cars and stuff, you're going to need to have good credit. And credit score is a factor of a number of things. Two major factors are, number one, your credit utilization. Number two is how early and how often you pay off your credit cards and if you're paying them on time. So your credit utilization, let's say your credit limit is $10,000 and you're using roughly $1,000. Well, hey, that's a 10% credit utilization. That's not too shabby. But if you're burning through $10,000 a month, you're at 100% utilization rate. That's a ton. And your credit score is going to be dinged severely because of that. So this is not something that's taught in high school. It's not taught in college really until later on when we find out, oh shoot, we actually will have to owe a lot of money. Okay. So that was a long spiel, but now that we've tackled those first 3 steps, the next step then is to figure out how to save a little bit of money every single paycheck so that we can achieve this next potential goal, which is to live off of last month's income. So this was a concept that was popularized by a budgeting software that I've used in grad school, which is called You Need a Budget. And it's aptly named, of course, but the goal here is the income that you make this month will actually cover your expenses for next month. So in effect, what this means is you got to save up roughly 1 month's worth of expenses just sitting around. And I know for some people this can be quite the challenge. And I definitely think that with time and practice, and if you have a good budget, this is definitely doable. So let me give you an example. Let's say your total monthly expenses is roughly $2,000, all in all. Includes your rent, your food, all your bills that you have to pay, and so on and so forth. So rather than kind of relying on this month's income to pay for your expenses for this month, what you want to do is you actually want to save up some money so that next month's income is covered, meaning you have an extra $2,000 sitting around to pay for next month's expenses. Not only will this get you off the paycheck to paycheck cycle, but it also will help you get a little bit of breathing room as well. In the event that some job loss happens or some emergency were to occur, you're basically covered for at least another month. That's really good. And honestly, that's better than most that are dealing with their personal finances for the first time. So I would say definitely have this as one of your other goals as well. I used this a lot when I was in grad school and it helped save my butt for sure. So now that we've covered all of that and you've happened to save up another month of expenses, the next step then is to realize, well, okay, what are your other maybe low to moderate interest debts? So this could be like your student loans, this could be any personal loans that you might have, your auto loans, and try and come up with a plan and a goal to attack those, just because we don't want to have debt any further, right? We don't want to have it progress and grow into a monster, because compound interest is a real thing, and it will actually eradicate all the budgeting and all the advice that you've taken from this video so far. So we want to come up with a strategy and a plan to tackle that. So let's say, for instance, you owe a lot of money for your student loans, and so far you've just been paying the minimum. Now, because you've paid off previous high interest debts, now you have a little bit of money left over that you can now use to pay off your other loans. So this can be actually pretty useful, because now you've gotten pretty used to paying off your high interest credit card debt. Now you can just shovel all that money that you set aside that you budgeted for that towards your lower interest debts too. Now, this concept is called the debt snowball. And this was popularized by Dave Ramsey, of course. I'm not going to say that I invented this, but what this in effect will do is it'll help you keep a solid budget where you can just live off of the money that you know you need to use and use the remainder then to pay off your debt. So, got that down. Now these are, by the way, I just want to kind of emphasize this is like the bare basics here. This is not accounting for having investments or any kind of advanced topics like that. I just want to help people get a basic understanding of what is happening when they dive into this world of personal finance for the first time. Once we have a plan to tackle the student loans, the auto loans, the personal loans, now we can start to kind of consider, okay, well, maybe there's a chance that we can start to build up our month of expenses that we saved up earlier to something a little bit greater. So a rule of thumb is you want to typically have an emergency fund of roughly 6 to 9 months of expenses. Now this is a lot of money depending on what your expenses are. But just like how you want to pay off your student loans over time, this is another goal that you want to set aside and try to reach as well. And granted, over time, this will take place and you will start to build it up and your emergency fund will begin to grow and you'll be able to have a little bit more comfort. Now, the year is 2020. We all know what happened this year. This has been a very terrible year to say the least. And this is kind of an example of where an emergency fund would actually be quite beneficial because an emergency fund will at least cushion the fall for however many months you've saved up. And I think 6 to 9 months is pretty good. It depends on your risk tolerance. If you believe you can get a job very quickly after a job loss, maybe having 6 months might be too much. But if you're in a very high niche industry and you need to, it takes time to prepare to look for a job, then yeah, maybe having 6 to 9, maybe even 12 months of expenses might be a good idea. So I hope that this video was quite helpful, and I hope to kind of shed a little bit of light on a fairly boring topic, or quote unquote boring topic. And I think there's a lot of value that you can gain from this, in that it really kind of emphasizes the point that you really want to be prepared for whatever life throws at you, to at least as much as you can control, right? And what I mean is, if you can control your debt, if you can tackle your debt, and then eliminate your debt, while also having a buffer of 1 month's expenses, like living off of last month's income, and growing that to become potentially 6 months worth of income, you can really protect yourself in a lot of situations in life that you might not have any control over. If your company decides to have layoffs, who cares? You're prepared. You can actually subsist. You could actually sustain yourself for at least another 6 or 7 months. So I hope that this was valuable. I hope that this content that you see here was beneficial, and definitely feel free to go back in time for this video and just kind of rewatch some of the parts if you need to. I talk a lot about these goals here, but these are not new concepts. These are actually things that I've learned from a lot of other financial gurus in this space, and I'm just another guy, but it really helped me out, and I really think that maybe this could help you out as well. So if you like what you saw, feel free to leave a like below. It really helps out the channel, and it helps a lot of other people discover this content too. If you have any feedback or any comments or any stories about your own personal finance journeys, let me know down in the comment section below. Feel free to subscribe for more content too. All right, until next time, cheers.